Board game chat, board game chat, board game chat, it's board game chat. Hi, I'm Stephanie with the Ann Arbor District Library, and today we're going to be talking about abstract strategy games. This is a subset of board games, and I'm not great with definitions on the fly, so I'm going to read to you paraphrasing from Wikipedia. So, an abstract strategy game, is a game in which the theme is not important to the experience of playing. So a lot of those that you're familiar with are maybe chess, Go, checkers, something like that. We're going to talk about some other abstract strategy games. But first I wanted to talk about one other aspect of them that's not necessary for it to be an abstract strategy game, but is often there, which is that there's no hidden information. So there's no non-deterministic elements such as shuffled cards or dice rolls. So that's not necessary for it to be an abstract strategy game, but it can be there. And finally, on Wikipedia, there was a really beautiful quote that I liked and wanted to share with you. It says, as Mark Thompson wrote in his article defining the abstract, play is sometimes said to resemble a series of puzzles the players pose to each other. And I think that sums it up really well. So we are going to be talking about abstract strategy games, but specifically two-player abstract strategy games. So let's dive in. So the first one we can talk about is Goblet. This is Goblet. I think they make a more colorful version too, but this is the kind that I have. Box opens up and the pieces are in here. There's some really beautiful pieces. So these are nested pieces. So this last one has nothing in it. It's the baby. And so one player plays the natural wood colors, and the other player plays the black pieces. And then you flip the top upside down, and there's your board. Slides back in. So this is very similar to a like a Connect 4 or something like that, where you're trying. The goal is to get 4 in a row, but with a twist. So these pieces, like I said, they're nested, and you can only play the top piece of each stack. So when I start, I would have to pick one of the largest pieces to play, and that can go anywhere on the board. And then my opponent can place anywhere on the board except the space that I am at, because this wouldn't fit over top of that. But now I have the two of the biggest sizes, and then one that's slightly smaller. So I can choose any of these 3 to go on the board somewhere. Choose that. So maybe this time I'll use one of the smaller pieces. So now my opponent can, because it fits, can cover that piece up. And instead of placing a piece on the board, you can instead move a piece that you've already placed somewhere on the board. Right now that doesn't seem advantageous to me. And thus he's won. So that is game, and then the natural wood-colored pieces win the game because they've covered this piece up with their own. And they've gotten four in a row of their color. And that's the game. So then you can just tear it down and play again, or put it all nicely away. like this interlocking box. It's very nice. Well done. So the next abstract strategy game I'm going to show you is called Pentago. And unlike the last one, this one, you need to get 5 in a row. Thus its name, Pentago. This is Pentago, and then when we open it up upside down because it has a bunch of marbles in there and they fit really well into the lid. You open it up, so you're ready to go. If you've put it away correctly, you're ready to go for the next time you play it. And then this is the board. So it's broken into 4 sections, and then each section rotates. So on your turn, you put a marble in any of these little divots that fit marbles in them, and then you have to rotate one section. Just one turn. And like I said, you're trying to get 5 in a row, vertically, diagonally, or horizontally. And when you do, the game is over, you win. When you do. Because you're going to win. Alright. Show you how it happens. For the first few turns, it doesn't quite matter which section you rotate. Later on, it becomes very important. And see, white player wins 5 in a row. It was kind of close. I had 3 in a row, but doesn't quite cut it. So, and then they've provided you this really nice lid. So all you have to do is put the marbles back in the lid. They fit really well into these little divots. And then the game latches right on to its lid. So it's ready to pack up and carry with you to the other rooms in your house. So the next 2 games I'm going to talk about are both cooperative abstract strategy games for 2 players. And both of these use communication in a really interesting way. So in the first one I'm going to talk to you about, which is called And Then We Held Hands. This one, you can't communicate, so it's cooperative. You're trying to achieve a goal with the other player. In this one, you can't talk about the game when you're playing the game. In fact, it encourages you in the rulebook to talk about anything else. The other one I'm going to talk about is called Telepathic. And in this one, you just can't talk at all when you're playing. So let's just jump in to And Then We Held Hands. This one is by Ludi Creations. Designers David Chirkop and Yannick Massa. It's really beautiful. I love the box art on this. I think it's really serene, really beautiful. We're going to move the camera a little closer so you can get to see the board a little bit better. And so this is the board. There's 2 sides. This side has little symbols in all of the spaces. The other side doesn't, but I really like that they've done that on one side of the board at least to benefit the colorblind players. It's my associate over there playing with me. So in this game, each player has 2 beads. There's blue and amber colors. And the goal is to, again, without communicating with your opponent about the game, about how you're playing the game, you are going to be achieving these goal cards, which is also very beautiful art, I feel. So the art is by Marie Cardouat. Probably not pronouncing that right. So these are set into 3 decks of 8 cards each. I'll have my co-player, separate those. And you can see that the board is separated into 3 rings. And our goal is to get both of our pieces into this middle ring at the exact same time. Well, on consecutive turns. So we've flipped up. The first goal is happy, which is the green square symbol. And then we each have these cards, which have symbols on each half. Sometimes it's the same symbol, sometimes it's different symbols. And then those are splayed out in front of us, originally in the direction of your choosing. And these are the cards that move your pieces around the board. So because this says happy, which is the green square symbol, that means that the first player is required to achieve this goal before their turn ends by using cards from either their splayed cards pile or their the other player's splayed cards pile to move their piece around. And so if they were to play the one showing the blue circle, they would move their piece to the blue circle symbol. And then that card would be removed from their pile and go to their discard. There's also, at the very bottom of the board, this track here. And so so you start at 0. Anytime that you play a blue or green, your circle, your disc moves this direction. Anytime you play a red or black, your disc moves the other direction. If you're squarely in the center, that means that at the end of the turn you do draw back up to 6 cards. But if you're not in the very center, then you don't draw cards. Okay, so let's say the other player is going first. Because this is only the first set of 8 objectives, they can only move on the outermost ring, and they can play either their cards or my cards. And their goal is to get to green. And they have to achieve that before their turn is over. So they've done that, so now that card goes away, and the next objective is revealed, which is sad. These are all emotions that we're representing on these cards. So this is the triangle. Now, he didn't end exactly in the middle, in the 0, so no cards are drawn. And also, now that he's ended on this half of the board, the cards are splayed in the other direction. So the other half of the cards are now visible. So even though he didn't draw any new cards, still getting a little bit of a mix-up there to see what cards are there. And so then these cards played by that player go into a special discard pile for that player alone. And now normally when you're playing this game, you would be talking about your day, talking about what you're going to make for dinner, just talking about anything accept the game. And the game just goes on as you play, as you talk about just anything else. And at the end of the turn, if somebody has ended their piece in the middle at 0, they draw draw so that their hand reaches 6 cards. So they're not drawing 6 new cards. This person already has 2 cards in their hand, so they're drawing 4 new cards. They just go to the back of the line there. And so we're not going to show you the entire game because that would take quite a while, but the goal is to move these little pegs all the way through the concentric rings to the center. And so there's 4 lines that are connecting the innermost ring to the very center there, and the goal is to have one player reach the center by playing any card, and then the consecutive turn, the next player is going to reach the center by playing any card. However, they both have to be in the 0 level here to win the game. So I just thought this was a really unique take on cooperative games and on abstract games, that you're not even talking about the game as you're playing. A lot of cooperative games, there can be that aspect of one player thinks they know the right way to play, and so they're strong-arming the other players into playing the way that they think they should, doing the right move. And in this one, you just can't have that because you're not even supposed to be communicating about the game. So then the next one, kind of on the same vein, is Telepathic by Karl Klutsky. So this game you're not supposed to be talking about at all. You're not supposed to be talking at all when you play it. So this game has these are cut tiles that each have a symbol and color on them. Different, I think there's 4 different colors. And we set up the board. It's random every time, so you kind of play a different game each time. Once you have the grid set up, you decide who's going to play the color player, who's going to play the shapes color, and then the color player gets these cards, and the shapes player gets similar cards that have shapes with a check mark and an X on one, and then you'll be dealt, each player will be dealt 2 cards, and you put them next to, one's next to the X and one's next to the check mark, and throughout this game, the goal is to wordlessly, telepathically communicate to the other player so that the win condition can be met, which is the check mark, while not fulfilling the lose condition, which is the X, for either player. So, for example, my win condition, don't look, is that we have this 3 color in a row, and the lose condition is, look, that we have these 3 in a row. So if we have these 3 in a row, then I have to announce, on my turn, I have to announce the game is over. However, even though I want these 3 in a row, the other 3 that I showed you, we also have to have the 3 shapes that the other player has. I'm not looking, showing the camera. Knock if you're done. All right, so those 3 shapes have to be in a row in addition to the 3 colors in a row that I've shown you. And if these 3 shapes, are in a row, then we lose. So if my 3 colors are in a row, then I don't get to announce, oh, we've won. But if I think that the other player has achieved their objective, then I can announce, I think you've achieved your objective, and this is what I think it is. And then they would say, okay, I think you've achieved your objective, and this is what I think it is. And if we are both right, and both objectives have been achieved, then we win. So, how do we go about moving these pieces on the board, on the table, to achieve those objectives? So we're going to have 4 of these cards out, and they just show how the tiles are going to move. So this one says, on any of the rows, you would move one of these to the other side, and then just shift everything over. So it would be, moving this all the way over, and then shifting these over, just like that. However, again, we're telepathically communicating with our opponent, so you don't get to choose which action you're going to do. Like I said, there's going to be 4 available, but your opponent is choosing for you because you've telepathically told them what you want. So they're going to look at the 4 that are face up. They're going to pick the one that they think you want the most, hand it to you, and then you execute the action. Hopefully it works out for everyone. Once that card has been used, once that action has been used, it is out of the game. A new one fills in. And once all of the cards are done, if you haven't announced that you've won at that point, that is when you must announce, and hopefully a win is won. Shall we show a round or two? All right. So I remember what my win and lose conditions are. Great grammar. Okay, and so yes, that is correct. If there's 3 in a row, then you do have to move them and give an unfair advantage. So thank you, co-player, for fixing setup. So I guess I'll start and give, let's see, I'm going to give this to you. So this is the example I was showing earlier. And I don't know if you noticed, because these cards are a little bit far away from the camera, but there is a compass rose in the center here, and they're all aligned in the same direction on this this line here. And so we've established that the compass indicates this tile here. So that's the way that we can differentiate columns from rows as we play. Okay. So this one is to swap 2 tiles and then swap the other 2 tiles in a row. Let's see if I can make that to my advantage. So this is card there. And so I just realized that we lost because there are now 3 blue in a row, and I think I just goofed on that myself, which was my bad. But anyways, so now you get a feel for the game. It's a really interesting wordless cooperative game. I like this foray into cooperative games where you are playing together but can't communicate about what you're doing. So you really do have to know your the other player that you're playing with and know how they're gonna respond to the suggestions that you're giving them by the cards that you're handing them. And then if you want to make it easier, your first few games, there are cards that are like starting cards that you can play with that are easier actions. And the first game, the rules kind of recommend that you don't run through the deck. You just cycle through them and keep playing until you've either lost or won. But there's no definitive endpoint for the starting game. So that's Telepathic. And the next abstract game that I want to show you is called Onama. Onama, it's maybe more visible on the top of the box. So this is, again, it's a 2-player game. If I can open it correctly. So I love how portable this one is. You know, it's a really small box, and then this mat rolls out, and that's your board. So one person plays red and the other person plays blue. This is sort of a chess-ish game. So you have the apprentices, these little guys. There's 4 of them per color, and then each person has the master, which is kind of sort of like the king in chess. You don't want him to be captured. If you do, you lose. So there's 2 ways that you can win this game. One is to capture the opponent's master. The other is to get your master all the way to their podium, let's say, on the other side of the board. And the way that's achieved is you draw out 5 of these cards. You can see there's a grid on there. The center symbol there is black, and that indicates where your pawn is already standing. And then the red cube spaces, the red spaces there, are where he can move to. And so this one's it's colored green, this one is blue, but there's not really any difference there. So each player is dealt 2 of them. Additionally, there is one off to the side. So when you use one of these, let's say I used Rooster and I moved my pawn in the way that is prescribed by this, which is, let's see, be over 1, up 1, so that'd be that. Then that card goes off to the side here, and I grab the one that's on the other side. So the cards are just rotating in this clockwise direction as you play. And you can move either the master or the apprentices. You can't use the one that's on the side, only the 2 that are in front of you. And it can be pretty fast. It can also be pretty, like, thinky. You're trying to really outwit your opponent. Like that quote said at the very start, you're posing a puzzle to the other player. And to capture an opponent's piece, you just have to move onto that space with one of your pieces. And the cool thing is that you can see the opponent's available moves, so you know what is available for them to do. And then you just continue in this fashion until one person has either captured the master of the other opponent or gotten their master all the way onto the other side of the board. There's a lot of these cards, so it's never going to be the same game twice because you only play with 5 of them. So you've got a good mix of cards. There is an expansion out there that involves this wind. It's called Way of the Wind. It involves this wind token, which I think looks really cool. But I really just like the original, the base game. I think it's really fun. Well, thank you for joining me and learning about abstract strategy games for 2 players. I know that sounds a bit niche, but hopefully you learned about what an abstract strategy game is, what it can be. We've seen some games that are more for kids, some games that are more for adults, some games that are pretty fast. I'd say these ones are a little bit longer. Some games that are cooperative and competitive, and also ones that involve no communication but telepathic thought. So hopefully you enjoyed this and learned about what an abstract strategy game is. Again, I'm Stephanie with the Ann Arbor District Library, and thanks for joining me.